Thank you, Mr Speaker. I have a question for the Minister for Health and Wellbeing. Can the Minister advise if there are plans from the government to lift the COVID-19 vaccination requirements for frontline health workers in South Australia? And with your leave and that of the House, I'll explain.
Leave sought is leave granted. For Naranga.
I recently contacted the Minister on behalf of a constituent who had elected not to have the vaccination or a vaccination and who was unable to return to her job as a nurse. But since that time, the Queensland Health have repealed all mandatory COVID vaccination requirements for its health workers. And I wondered whether the South Australian Government had plans for the same.
Minister.
Thank you very much to the member for Naranga for his question and his advocacy on behalf of his constituents. As members will know, previously had an arrangement in place where there were directions that were in place under the Emergency Management Act and the State Coordinator, where there were a number of directions that were put in place for employees who had to undertake the COVID-19 vaccination to work in particular industries. That was a wide range of industries that happened at that time, and a number of those ended when, over the period before we ended the emergency management arrangements and before even we transitioned to those being under the Public Health Act. We then, as a parliament, transitioned a number of those to the Public Health Act for a period of 6 months. And then at the conclusion of that, there was none of those declarations and directions in place covering particular industries. However, at that time, obviously it became, there were many industries or businesses that decided to take their own decisions in relation to workplace policies for occupational health safety reasons to have directions for their own staff in place. One of those is SA Health, which has had a vaccination policy for its staff for a very long time, covering a variety of different vaccinations that staff should have. And there was a review of that process that was done, led obviously by Professor Spurrier, but obviously overseen as well by the Chief Executive, that updated that policy and added COVID-19 as part of that decision and that policy that was in place in relation to staff who work for SA Health. There's some health businesses that have similar policies in place, there's some that do not. Look, these policies are always under review by the Chief Public Health Officer, by the Chief Executive. We'll continue to get the public health advice on that. It's not something that we as ministers make decisions about. This is a decision that will ultimately be made by the Chief Executive based on advice from the Chief Public Health Officer. I understand that the majority of jurisdictions, particularly the larger jurisdictions in Australia, still have similar policies in place in relation to public health employees in states like Victoria and New South Wales, but we'll continue to monitor that and I'll continue to update members if there's changes that are made.
Before Hartley.